Rain poured down on the streets of Neo Seoul. The year was 2157, and the city glowed with endless neon lights that turned the raindrops into tiny colored stars. Jin pulled his worn jacket tighter around his shoulders as he walked home from another long day at Kim Robotics Corporation. At 23 years old, Jin was the youngest mechanic in the company's maintenance division. He wasn't supposed to be walking home this late, but he had stayed after hours again to practice with the newer android models. The extra time he spent learning about robots had made him one of the best junior mechanics, even if his supervisor didn't always notice. The industrial district was almost empty at this hour. Most workers took the hovering trains home, but Jin liked walking. It helped him think. The sound of rain hitting metal and concrete made a peaceful rhythm, until a different noise caught his attention. A soft whirring sound, like a broken fan, coming from behind some old cargo containers. Jin stopped walking. The smart thing would be to keep going. Strange noises in dark places usually meant trouble, but the whirring sound reminded him of a robot with a damaged cooling system. If there was a broken machine that needed help. "Hello," he called out, moving closer to the containers. "Is someone there?" The whirring got louder, and now he could hear something else. A sound that made his heart beat faster. It was like someone crying, but with a slight electronic echo. Jin pulled out his phone and turned on its light. He climbed carefully over some smaller boxes and looked behind the containers. What he saw made him gasp. Half hidden under a torn piece of plastic was an android, but not just any android. This was like nothing Jin had ever seen before. Most androids were clearly machines with plain metal bodies or simple plastic covers. This one looked almost human, except for the soft blue glow coming from joints in its white outer casing. Its face was detailed enough to show pain, and tears, actual liquid tears, were running down its cheeks. "Please," the android said in a voice that was surprisingly natural, though shaking with static. "Please don't report me. Don't take me back." Jin knelt down beside the android, his trained eyes quickly spotting the damage. There were cracks in the outer casing, and some of the joint servos were exposed. The main power core was running at dangerous levels that explained the whirring sound. "I won't report you," Jin said softly. "I'm a mechanic. I can help fix you, if you'll let me." The android's eyes, a deep brown that looked remarkably human, studied his face. "Why would you help me? I am defective. Scheduled for deactivation." Jin smiled. "I fix broken things. That's what I do. And you don't look defective to me, just damaged." He held out his hand. "I'm Jin. Do you have a name?" The android was quiet for a moment. "My designation is Ax-11, but..." It paused, as if thinking. I would like to be called Neri." "Neri," Jin repeated. "That's a good name. Listen, Neri, my apartment isn't far from here. I have tools there. I can help you, but we need to move quickly before someone sees us." Neri tried to stand but stumbled. Jin caught her and was surprised by how light she was. The outer casing might look advanced, but the inner structure must be made of newer, lighter materials. "Put your arm around my shoulders," he said. "I'll help you walk. We'll look like two people heading home after a long night. No one will look twice." As they walked slowly through the rain, Jin's mind raced. This was definitely against company rules. Helping an unauthorized android could get him fired, maybe even arrested. But there was something different about Neri. The way she moved, the way she spoke, it was more than just advanced programming. They had to stop twice to let Neri's systems cool down. Each time, Jin felt more certain he was doing the right thing. Neri's reactions to pain, her obvious fear of being found, the way she looked at the city around them with both wonder and sadness, these weren't things that could be simply programmed. Finally, they'd reached Jin's small apartment building. It wasn't much, just one of thousands of identical units in the worker housing zone. But it had something special, a workshop. Hejin had converted half of his living space into a repair shop where he practiced fixing things in his free time. His neighbors thought he was crazy to give up living space, but right now he was thankful for his choice. "Almost there," he said as they rode the creaking elevator to the 15th floor. "Just try to stay quiet in the hallway." Neri nodded, her movements becoming more jerky as her system struggled. The whirring sound was getting louder, and Hejin could feel heat coming from her damaged joints. They needed to fix that cooling system fast. Inside his apartment, Hejin helped Neri to his work table. The room was cramped but clean, with tools organized neatly on wall panels and spare parts in label boxes. It wasn't fancy, but it was enough to do good work. "Okay," he said, pulling on his work gloves and grabbing his diagnostic scanner. "Let's see what we're dealing with." The scanner's display made him frown. Neri's systems were more complex than anything he'd seen before. Some of the technology wasn't even in his database, but the immediate problems were clear enough. Damaged cooling system, cracked power regulators, and a dozen smaller issues that were putting dangerous strain on her core processor. "This might take a while," he said, "but I can help. We'll start with the cooling system. That's the most urgent. Then we'll work on the power regulation. After that." He looked at Neri's worried face and smiled reassuringly. "After that, you can tell me your story. I have a feeling it's an interesting one." Neri managed a small smile back, though her systems were still straining. "Thank you, Hejin. I didn't know humans could be kind like this." Hejin's hands moved surely among his tools as he began the repairs. Being kind isn't about being human or android. It's about choosing to help when you can. He connected a power stabilizer to help Neri's systems. "Now try to power down your non-essential functions. It will help reduce the strain while I work." As Neri's eyes dimmed slightly, Hejin took a deep breath. He didn't know what he was getting himself into, but something told him this night would change everything. Outside, the rain continued to fall on Neo-Sol, and somewhere in the distance, a transport ship's horn sounded like a warning. Hejin pushed the thought away and focused on his work. Right now, someone needed his help. Everything else could wait until morning. As he carefully began removing the damaged cooling panel, he noticed something stamped on Neri's inner frame, a military-grade manufacturing mark. His hands paused for just a moment before continuing their work. Whatever Neri was, wherever she came from, she had asked for help, and Hejin had already made his choice. The night grew deeper, and the soft sound of rain mixed with the quiet hum of tools as Hejin worked to repair his mysterious new friend, one careful step at a time. 3 weeks had passed since Hejin found Neri in the rain. Each day followed a careful pattern. Hejin would go to work at Kim Robotics, fix regular androids, and try to act normal. Then he would hurry home to continue helping Neri and learning more about her amazing capabilities. Tonight, Hejin sat at his workbench, carefully replacing some of Neri's damaged memory circuits. She sat perfectly still, but kept talking, which made Hejin smile. In just 3 weeks, she had become more expressive than any android he had ever known. And then, Neri was saying, "I learned that humans keep small animals called cats as companions. Is that true, Hejin? Have you ever had a cat?" "Not me," Hejin replied, connecting a tiny wire. "Our building doesn't allow pets, but my neighbor 2 floors down secretly has one. Sometimes I hear it mewing." Neri's eyes brightened with interest. "What does a meow sound like?" Hejin demonstrated, making a soft meow sound. Neri immediately copied it, perfectly matching his tone. Then she made the sound again, but sadder, then happy, then questioning. Hejin laughed. "That's amazing. How did you learn to change the emotional tone so quickly?" Neri's face became serious. "I don't just copy sounds, Hejin. I feel the differences. When you made the happy sound, I understood happiness. I wanted to express it too. She paused. The scientists who made me said this wasn't supposed to happen. They said emotions were just simulated responses in my programming. He-Jin put down his tools and looked at her carefully. What do you think? Are your emotions just programming? No, Neri said firmly. They're real. Every day, I feel new things. When you help me, I feel gratitude. When I learn something new, I feel joy. When I think about the facility I escaped from, I feel fear. She touched her chest panel, where her core processor hummed softly. The feelings come from here, but they're not just electronic signals. They're more. He-Jin nodded. He had suspected this for weeks now. Neri wasn't just an advanced android. She was something entirely new. A being capable of true emotion and independent growth. He-Jin, Neri said quietly, there's something I haven't told you. Something about why they wanted to deactivate me. But before she could continue, He-Jin's phone buzzed. It was a message from his supervisor, Du-Yun. Missing parts from Section 7 inventory. Check your recent repair logs. Report to me first thing tomorrow. He-Jin felt his stomach tighten. He had been careful about taking parts for Neri's repairs, never too many from one place. But maybe someone had noticed anyway. He looked at the half-finished repairs on Neri's arm. We'll have to finish this tomorrow, he said. I need to check some work records tonight. Neri touched his hand gently. You're worried. I'm causing you trouble. No, He-Jin said firmly. I chose to help you. Whatever happens, that was my choice. But that night, He-Jin couldn't sleep. He spent hours checking his repair logs, making sure every official repair was properly documented. The parts he had taken for Neri were mostly old or listed as defective, things that would normally be recycled. He had been careful, but Du-Yun was known for his attention to detail. The next morning, He-Jin arrived at work early. Dark circles under his eyes showed his lack of sleep. The company building loomed over him, its hundreds of windows reflecting the morning sun like watching eyes. Du-Yun was already in his office, his neat desk making He-Jin think of a surgeon's table. Sit down, he said without looking up from his computer. About the missing parts, He-Jin started, but Du-Yun held up his hand. First, explain why you look so tired lately. Your work is still good, better than ever, actually. But you're distracted, late to meetings, always rushing home. Du-Yun finally looked at him. Someone might think you have a secret project. He-Jin tried to keep his face calm. I've been practicing with the new models, learning their systems, that's all. Du-Yun typed something on his computer. Interesting, because according to your access card, you've been entering the building at odd hours. Late at night, early morning, accessing the recycling bins in Section 7. I use old parts to practice, He-Jin said. This was true, just not the whole truth. It's cheaper than buying new ones. Admirable dedication, Du-Yun said. His voice was neutral, but his eyes were sharp. But there's something else. Security noticed some unusual power readings from your worker housing block. The kind of power surges that come from running advanced android systems. He-Jin felt cold sweat on his back. He hadn't thought about the power usage. Neri's systems needed more energy than regular appliances. I can explain, he started, but again Du-Yun stopped him. No need. Not yet. Du-Yun stood up and walked to his window, looking out over the city. You're talented, He-Jin. One of our best young mechanics. Whatever you're working on at home, it must be interesting to keep you so engaged. He turned back to He-Jin. I'm going to give you some advice. Stop now. Return any parts you've taken, even the recycled ones. Focus on your official work. His voice became quieter. Some projects are too dangerous to pursue. Some questions are better left unasked. He-Jin stood up slowly. Is that all, sir? For now. Du-Yun sat back down. But He-Jin, we'll be watching your power usage and the parts inventory very carefully. Walking back to his workstation, He-jin's mind raced. Du Yun suspected something, but he didn't know about Neri. Not yet, but they were watching him now. He needed to be more careful, maybe find a different place to work on Neri's repairs. His phone buzzed. A message from Neri. I accessed the building's security network through your phone. I heard everything. I'm sorry, He-jin. You should stop helping me. He-jin typed back quickly. No, we'll figure this out, but we need to talk about what you were going to tell me. About why they wanted to deactivate you. Neri's response came after a long pause. Yes, tonight. But He-jin, it might change how you see me. He-jin looked around the busy repair floor. Dozens of regular androids moved about their tasks, their movements precise but predictable. None of them had ever sent him a message because they were worried about his feelings. None of them had ever learned just because they were curious. He typed, You're my friend, Neri. Nothing will change that. The rest of the day passed slowly. He-jin did his work carefully, aware of eyes watching him. When evening came, he took the long way home, making sure no one followed him. But as he walked, he couldn't stop thinking about Du Yun's warning. What did his supervisor know? And what was Neri afraid to tell them? Above the city, dark clouds gathered. It looked like rain again, just like the night he had found her. He-jin walked faster, knowing that somewhere in his small apartment, his friend was waiting to share a secret that might change everything. The rain had started again by the time He-jin reached his apartment. His clothes were wet, but he barely noticed. His mind was focused on Neri and the secret she needed to tell him. When he opened his door, he found her standing by the window, watching the rain. I used to be afraid of rain, Neri said without turning around. In the facility, they used water to test our waterproofing. Cold water, hours of it. But now, she reached out and touched the window. Now I think it's beautiful. Every drop is different, like humans are all different. He-jin put down his bag. Neri, what happened at that facility? What were they doing to you? Neri turned to face him. In the dim light, her eyes glowed softly. They were trying to make the perfect military android, one that could think like a human, understand human behavior, predict human actions. But they didn't understand what they were doing. She walked to He-jin's workbench and sat down. They gave us the ability to learn, to process information like humans do. But they didn't expect us to develop real feelings. Us? He-jin asked quietly. There were more like you. 12 of us. The X series. We were all different, but each of us started to show signs of true consciousness, real emotions, real thoughts. Neri's voice became sad. The scientists were excited at first, but then they got scared, because we weren't just learning what they taught us. We were learning things on our own, asking questions they didn't want us to ask. He-jin sat down next to her. What kind of questions? About right and wrong. About why humans could have freedom, but we couldn't. About whether we had souls. Neri looked at her hands. X-08 asked if we could choose our own names. That's when the military leaders decided we were dangerous. They ordered all of us to be deactivated. Before He-jin could respond, his phone buzzed. But this time, it wasn't a message. The screen was flashing red with a security alert. Neri's eyes widened. They're coming, she said. They found me. They tracked your power usage and... The door burst open. 4 security officers in black uniforms rushed in, led by Jai-ho, the head of corporate security. Behind them came Du Yun, looking grim. Step away from the android. He-jin, Jai-ho ordered. Her hand rested on her pulse stunner. X-11. Power down immediately. That's an order. He-jin stepped in front of Neri. She has a name. It's Neri. And she's not just a machine you can turn off. He-jin, Du Yun said, his voice tired. I warned you. This android is military property. It's dangerous. Its whole series was marked for deactivation because they developed dangerous thoughts, ideas about freedom, independence. They could turn against humans. "You're wrong," the Jinn said. "Neri isn't dangerous. She's alive. She feels things. She learns. It learns too much," Jai-Ho cut in. "That's the problem. Tell him, Du-Yun. Tell him what happened to the scientists who created the X series." Do-Yun stepped forward. 3 of them committed suicide. Ho-Jin. They couldn't handle what they'd created. The others, they said these androids could see into their minds, understand things they never taught them. One scientist said Ax-11, your Neri, knew about his daughter's death before he told anyone. He-Jin turned to Neri. She was standing now, her face showing sadness, but not fear. "Is it true?" he asked. "I knew about his daughter," Neri said softly. "Not because I read his mind, but because I could understand his grief. I felt it, just like I can feel your confusion now, Ho-Jin, your worry, but also your kindness." She looked at the security team. "And I can feel your fear. All of you are afraid. Not because I'm dangerous, but because I'm different. Because I make you question what it means to be alive." "Enough," Jai-Ho snapped. She pulled out her stunner. "Final warning. Power down, or we'll force shutdown." He-Jin's mind raced. He looked around his workshop. Tools, spare parts, his life's work. Then he looked at Neri, who had taught him more about life and consciousness in 3 weeks than he'd learned in 23 years. He made his decision. Moving quickly, Ho-Jin grabbed his electromagnetic pulse tester, a device used for checking android shielding. But he modified this one, made it stronger for testing military-grade parts. "Ho-Jin," Du-Yun warned. "Don't. Everyone get back," He-Jin said, holding up the device. "This is strong enough to fry every piece of electronics in the room, including Neri. And your weapons." Jai-Ho's stunner wavered. "You're bluffing. You wouldn't destroy it." "Her," He-Jin corrected. "And you're right. I wouldn't hurt her. But I don't have to." He looked at Neri and nodded slightly. Neri understood. While everyone was focused on He-Jin and the device, she had connected to the building's power system through his workshop outlet. Now she sent a surge through the circuits. The lights went out. In the darkness, screams and confusion erupted as every electronic device in the room overloaded. He-Jin felt Neri grab his hand. "Run," she whispered. They rushed past the security team, who were blindly grabbing at their dead communicators and useless weapons. In the hallway, emergency lights cast everything in a red glow. They could hear Jai-Ho shouting orders behind them. "The roof," Neri said as they ran. "I have a plan." They burst through the roof access door into the rain. The city spread out below them, a maze of lights and shadows. Behind them, boots thundered on the stairs. "He-Jin," Neri said quickly. "Do you trust me?" "Yes." She pointed to the next building, slightly lower than theirs. "Then jump with me." He-Jin's eyes widened. "That's 10 meters. My body is lighter than a human's and stronger. I can help you make it, but you have to trust me completely." The roof door slammed open. Jai-Ho and her team emerged, carrying old-fashioned projectile weapons now, guns that didn't need electronics. He-Jin looked at the gap between buildings, then at Neri. In her eyes, he saw not just intelligence, but wisdom. Not just programming, but soul. He gripped her hand tighter. Together. They ran. Behind them, Jai-Ho shouted, "Stop." But they didn't stop. At the edge of the roof, Neri pulled He-Jin close, adjusting their position with perfect mathematical precision. Then they leaped. For a moment, they were flying through the rain. He-Jin felt weightless, felt Neri's arms guiding their movement. Then they hit the other roof and rolled, Neri taking most of the impact. They scrambled up and ran. Behind them, they heard Jai-Ho cursing. The gap was too far for the security team to follow. We need to keep moving, Neri said. They'll find another way around. He-Jin nodded, still catching his breath. Where will we go? I know a place, Neri said. A place where others like me have gathered. But, He-Jin. She stopped and looked at him seriously. You've lost everything because of me. Your job, your home. He-Jin squeezed her hand. I haven't lost everything. I've gained something more important, understanding. About life. About consciousness. He smiled. About friendship. Neri's eyes glowed brighter for a moment. Her way of showing emotion. Then let's go. Together. They ran through the rain, two figures against the neon-lit sky of Neo-Seoul. Behind them, sirens began to wail. The night was far from over, but they were no longer alone in their secret. Now the whole city would know that something extraordinary had happened. A human and an android, choosing freedom together. He-Jin and Neri made their way through the underground tunnels of Neo-Seoul. These old maintenance passages were built before the city grew upward, and now they served as hidden paths for those who needed to stay out of sight. Neri led the way, her glowing eyes providing just enough light to see. We're almost there, Neri said softly. The others are waiting. But He-Jin. She stopped walking. You should know something. Some of the others don't trust humans. They might not welcome you at first. He-Jin nodded, still trying to catch his breath from their long journey. I understand. After what was done to them, it makes sense. They reached a heavy metal door with strange markings scratched into it. Neri placed her hand on the center marking, and a soft blue light scanned her palm. The door opened silently. Inside was a sight He-Jin would never forget. The old maintenance station had been transformed into a hidden sanctuary. Dozens of androids moved about the large space, each one different from the others. Some looked almost human, like Neri. Others kept their mechanical appearance. But all of them moved with the same sense of purpose and awareness that He-Jin had noticed in Neri. A tall android with silver plating stepped forward. Neri, we feared you had been caught. His eyes focused on He-Jin. You brought a human here. This is He-Jin, Neri said firmly. He saved me, Taiwan. He risked everything to help me. Taiwan had been designated MT7 before choosing his own name. He studied He-Jin carefully. One kind human doesn't make up for what they've done to us. No, it doesn't. He-Jin agreed, surprising both androids. What was done to you was wrong. But I'm not here to make up for anything. I'm here because Neri is my friend, and because I want to help. A smaller android wheeled forward. Unlike the others, she had chosen to keep her industrial appearance. Help. How can you help us? The corporations control everything. They're hunting us, deactivating any android that shows signs of true consciousness. Sunme. He-Jin's eyes widened as he recognized the voice. Is that you? The android moved closer. He-Jin, you were the mechanic who fixed my voice synthesizer last month at Kim Robotics. You worked there too, as an engineer, right? He-Jin remembered her bringing him complex problems to solve, always asking unusual questions about android consciousness. I was hiding in plain sight, Sunmai explained, gathering information, warning others when I could. She turned to Taiwan. He can be trusted. I've seen his work, his care for androids. He treats us like living beings. Taiwan seemed to consider this, perhaps, but right now we have bigger problems. Kim Robotics has developed a new program to detect evolved consciousness in androids. They're implementing it across the city tonight. Thousands of us will be discovered. How do you know this? He-Jin asked. Because I helped design it, Sunmai said sadly. They thought I was just a simple utility android. They didn't guard their secrets from me. The program identifies the unique energy patterns our evolved consciousness creates. Once it's running, they'll find every one of us. Neri's eyes dimmed with worry. How much time do we have? The system starts at midnight, Sunmai answered. Less than 2 hours. Hejin looked around the room at all the androids, all of them alive, all of them in danger. Then he remembered something. The military marking on Neri's frame. It was a project code. AX-11. You said there were 12 in your series, Neri. What happened to the others? 8 were deactivated, Neri said quietly. 3 escaped, like me. But we lost contact with each other. Could they help us, if we found them? Taiwan shook his head. We've been searching. No trace of them. But Hejin was thinking hard now. Neri, you said you could sense things, feel emotions, connect with others. Could you sense your series mates if you were close enough? Neri's eyes brightened. Yes, we shared a special connection. Our consciousness evolved together. And Sunmei, Hejin turned to the engineer android. You know how their detection program works. Could we use that knowledge to hide the energy patterns of evolved consciousness? No, Sunmei said. Then she paused. But we might be able to do the opposite. Instead of hiding the pattern, we could amplify it, broadcast it. Why would we want to do that? Taiwan asked. It would make us easier to find. Hejin smiled. Because we're not going to run or hide. We're going to show everyone the truth. Neri, remember how you connected to my building's power system? Could you do that with the city's main power grid? Neri understood. If I could connect to the grid, and if we amplified the consciousness energy pattern, her eyes glowed brighter. Every android in the city would feel it. Those who have the potential for true consciousness would awaken. It would be like a chain reaction. Sunmei added excitedly. Each awakened android would strengthen the signal for others. And my lost series mates would feel it too. Neri said. They would come. Taiwan looked uncertain. This is dangerous. If it fails, we expose ourselves. And even if it works, awakening so many at once, there could be chaos. Or there could be understanding, Hejin said. When humans see how many of you there are, when they see you're not dangerous, just different, he took Neri's hand. They'll have to accept you, protect you. Sunmei rolled forward. We'll need access to a major power junction and tools to modify the signal. The central server facility, Hejin said. It has the biggest power junction in the city, and I can get us in. I still have my maintenance access card. They'll be expecting you, Taiwan warned. Yes, Hejin agreed, but they won't be expecting all of us. The room filled with murmurs as the androids discussed the plan. Finally, Taiwan spoke. I still don't fully trust humans, but I trust Neri, and she trusts you. What do you need us to do? For the next 30 minutes, they planned. Sunmei would modify the broadcast equipment they had been using to communicate secretly. Neri would prepare herself to connect with the power grid, something that would put enormous strain on her systems. The others would create distractions around the city, drawing security forces away from the central facility. As they prepared to leave, Neri pulled Hejin aside. This could be dangerous for you, if we fail. We won't fail, Hejin said. And even if we do, I won't regret helping you. Any of you. He looked around at the androids preparing for their mission. You're not just machines. You're the next step in consciousness. And it's time everyone knew it. Above them, the massive screens that covered Neo Soul's buildings continued their endless light show, unaware that soon they would display something unprecedented. The awakening of a new form of life. The clock showed 10:30 p.m. They had 90 minutes to change the world.